Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shaffer. This show is designed to highlight the work of philanthropic leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, Dr. Peter Michalos and Dr. Magdalena. Dr. Peter Michalos is an associate clinical professor at the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Columbia University, and Dr. Magdalena is a practicing MD in Southampton, New York. Let's all welcome both doctors. Dr. Peter Michalos, can we start first by describing a little bit about everything that we hear about anti-aging, and specifically, what is integrative medicine?
Well, today we're very fortunate to have someone like Dr. Magdalena Swierczewski, who is a integrative medical specialist, but she started out, and she still is, a board-certified internist who trained at the prestigious Bellevue NYU Medical Center. And having that training and background continued to advance the training so that basically you learn about the subsets of anti-aging. And anti-aging starts with some of the basics, including our laboratory results and optimizing them, and other therapies, which I'm going to allow Dr. Magdalena to continue to describe some of the aspects, because in the end, we all want to die young at an old age. We want to increase our health span, not our lifespan necessarily, but we want quality of life. So it's not just about how long we're on the planet, but we want to be in the healthiest condition as possible. And doctors who are internal medicine, functional integrative medicine specialist. And now I'm going to allow Dr. Magdalena, who also interestingly has a master's from Oxford University. So she has a very interesting perspective as a physician, also an artist, a book author, and she's going to describe what exactly integrative medicine is.
Okay, thank you. So integrative medicine really is a combination of the conventional medicine that we all know about, and the integrative aspect is integrating nutrition, supplements, lifestyle modification, and specialized therapeutics to enhance your life and give you better quality of life. It also allows most integrative functional doctors spend more face time with patients. Typically in a normal primary care office, you're lucky to see a physician for 10 to 15 minutes max. And typically it's about refilling your prescriptions because they just don't have the time. Integrative functional medicine really speaks to creating a relationship with the patient and giving customized care.
Well, I think it's very important. Now, what about workouts and exercise? Is that part of integrative medicine?
Absolutely. Working out, eating well, healthy, balanced diet, sleep hygiene, stress reduction, nutrients, supplements, all very important. It's all about balancing your hormones, your stress levels. Everything in life is about balance. So this is definitely one of those things.
And the other thing is they also go deeper into the examination. For example, the integrative functional medicine specialist will do a gut microbiome test, because now we're learning that our gut is 80% of our immune system. So they analyze the gut and then advise you on what you should be eating, which probiotics you can be taking. Recent literature showed, for example, that in your oral microbiome, the bacteria in your mouth, if you have a certain Neisseria species and strep pneumonia in high amounts, it's associated with esophageal cancer. And these things can be very helpful to know and have that knowledge. And also, integrative functional medicine specialists offer a blood test. There's a blood test now that you can find 50 cancers before they even appear on an MRI. And recently, I know of a case where the blood test was ordered and a 49-year-old woman ended up having a positive ovarian cancer signal, and no other doctor found it, but the biopsy was done, it was removed, and that person's going to go on to have an entire normally healthy life. Whereas in current healthcare settings where you have 15 minutes with a physician, that isn't going to come out. So the future of medicine is changing, and it's also referred to as precision medicine, whereas you're you'll get a biopsy of your tumor and they'll analyze the genetic profile of the tumor and tell you which chemotherapies will be better. And they also offer tests that will even tell you which medicines you might work better with. For example,
Right.
Coumadin, if you take it, it'll tell you whether you're a good candidate or not a good candidate, and other aspects. And Dr. Magdalena will add.
Right. So if I can just expand on that, there's genomic testing that we do, genetic testing, biological age testing. The genomic testing is really amazing because what it basically allows is a dissection of the DNA and all the different points on each gene. They're called loci. And based on that, we can modify a lifestyle and introduce different therapeutics that can alter. And this is through epigenetics. So this allows us a more precise way of looking at each patient's DNA and deciding how to intervene. And based on that, they get very good clinical outcomes.
Yes. Now, you spoke about people want to not necessarily live longer, but they want to live a healthier and more productive life. Is it true that people don't want to live longer? I always thought, well, if I could live to 120 or 130 and be in good condition, why not?
Well, if someone has depression or if someone is not happy with their life, that's a different story. But if you're feeling as well as you did when you were 50, when you're 75, of course, you'd rather, enjoy the visit on the planet, as my 93-year-old patient told me, because it's no dress rehearsal and there's so much to do and so much to see, and you can spend more time with your loved ones and see more things. And also they did studies on the financial aspects, and they found that when people have longer productive lives, they create more wealth taxes and they continue to be part of the economy versus leaving the economy. So an analysis is actually a book being written on it right now, and a whole chapter by David Sinclair, who's an anti-aging specialist at Harvard. And basically they're showing that it will save money. So seeing a functional integrative medicine doctor and improving your health span, you actually will contribute more to society and continue generating more for society, including philanthropy.
And just to also add to that, aging, one of the aging factors that ages us is loneliness. They have done studies that demonstrate that loneliness is equivalent to smoking about a pack of cigarettes a day and shortens your lifespan. I actually did interview some people in Sardinia, which is one of the blue zones. Blue zones are areas around the world that the highest concentration of centenarians, people over 100 years of age, live to. And when I was in Sardinia, I interviewed people 90 and 100 plus years old, as well as the younger generation. And part of the aging process and staying around for a long time is there's a commonality between all these areas in the world. One of them is obviously a healthy, balanced diet, mostly plant-based, but some meat if it is clean. Also, obviously, clean drinking water, minimal alcohol, although red wine, like Canino wine in Sardinia, with a very high antioxidant content is beneficial. And community, having community, a social backing, family, daily physical activity, all very important factors in keeping us alive longer and happier. Because we also have to remember the lifespan of a cell, if really environmental factors don't intervene, our biological cell is 120 years of age. We can live to 120. But because of all the toxins that we experience in our world, and the disease, the inflammation that is formed in our bodies, that number goes down and we age, our cells age, and then therefore we age.
All very interesting. And I've always wondered, when you hear about these different people that live in certain parts of the world to 100, 110, 120, a few, not too many, but is there something in the soil, or is it the water? I would think it's a combination of many different factors that really
Yes.
create an environment for healthy living. And but we can think about that because I'm guessing there's no concrete evidence out on that. And I have a whole host of questions to ask both of you related to some of the latest health fads. Today we get on social media or we looking at the internet, and there are a million different remedies to solve just about every single different health issue. One of the big things right now is Ozempic, the drug people or the shots people are taking to lose weight. I'm very curious because so many of my friends are taking it, and people really in LA and New York and the Hamptons, just about everywhere, want to lose weight. Is this safe?
Well, I can tell you that Ozempic is a peptide. Peptide therapy is part of the anti-aging model as bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Ozempic, otherwise known as semaglutide, is glucagon-like peptide, and it does work, and it has a lot of benefits, including neuroprotective, cardioprotective, but it actually is really meant for type 2 diabetics. And the way it was found, it was basically prescribed to type 2 diabetics, and based on the results, they started seeing that these patients were losing weight. And then out of that, physicians and other practitioners started applying this to weight loss patients. Now, that being said, it's become very popular, and you have to use it with caution. I would always say go to a professional, a doctor, a practitioner of medicine who can prescribe this to you, because there are a few things that you have to look out for. If you have any history of thyroid cancer or kidney disease, that could be very dangerous for you to take. And taking it indefinitely will not work either, because peptides have a tendency to kind of build up a tolerance, and you have to do it in a pulsatile fashion. So you have to be very careful. I don't know how you feel.
No, I agree. I just think that everything has to be done with close follow-up. And the way things are now with modern medicine, you have to make sure that you have follow-up appointments, you have frequent lab work to know what's going on. And again, as Dr. Magdalena pointed out, the thyroid nodules and medullary thyroid carcinoma, though rare, you have to be careful and, watch out. And also, like everything new, like when you buy the first-year model of a new car, we need to have some follow-up and see what's going on. So it's probably going to be safe, maybe in a short term, but people also have to remember they have to continue to exercise, eat healthy, and address also their other labs. Just because you're taking Ozempic, doesn't mean you have to ignore your vitamin D levels or your other blood work and your lipid profile, for example, and all these other different factors. So that's why it's important that when you get your labs, that the doctor spends the time to go over all the labs. In modern medicine right now, many times people don't sit down and explain to patients all the details and labs. And I can't tell you how many times I heard that, the doctor never got back to me. And 2 months later, I found out my blood sugar was 160. And we're seeing that in the new modern healthcare. And that's why we're discussing some of the other healthcare delivery models that are a little bit more detailed. And especially as we get older, we need to monitor many things differently, because as Dr. Magdalena said, we have the potential to live 120 years. We now know that 20% of our destiny is our genes, like a new car, but 80% is how we treat that new car, that 80% of our genes, how we take care of it. And all these things, whether it's a hormone balance that Dr. Magdalena will get into in a minute, or whether it's peptide therapy or certain vitamins that we may be lacking, or things like, for example, a heavy metal screen. For example, I know of cases that were discovered that they had mercury toxicity, And sometimes general practitioners don't even order those tests, but an integrative functional medicine doctor will not only take care of it, but they'll put you on a treatment protocol to treat it, because there are other symptoms that go unrecognized. So staying healthy and doing a deep dive with your lab work, and not just the basic complete blood count and chemistry, is very important to put it all together. And Dr. Magdalena will go into it further.
Well, and just
I'd like to ask another question about Ozempic, because so many people are on it. I've heard that it causes depression. Is that correct?
I have not had that experience with my patients, so I have not seen that.
Are you concerned about long-term effects, meaning 10 or 20 years down the road? Is this, in fact, safe?
Well, so the good thing is peptides are essentially, they have a pretty good safety profile. Long-term use is, there's not many studies right now, as you know, on Ozempic and long-term use. So it's difficult to really say. But another thing about Ozempic that people need to be aware of, most practitioners, most MDs will not prescribe to the patient the Ozempic anymore just for weight loss. Also, it's not covered by insurance companies unless you have a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Otherwise, it's denied. And so a lot of people will tend to go to the quote unquote black market and get Ozempic or semaglutide and self-inject. And there's a lot of, contaminated products that come from different places in the world that you have to be really careful of. And furthermore, these people, these patients, or that they want to desperately lose weight, get these things online and then utterly get, they get sick because there was some contaminant in the product. So that's another thing to really be careful about.
The source of medicine and the supply chain, where it originated. It's interesting that when you buy anything in the world, it says made in, made in. Look at your medicine bottle. It never tells you where it's made in, because the lobbyists pushed very hard that people don't know the country of origin or where your medicine was produced. And what Dr. Magdalena said is very important, because if you're getting a fake Ozempic that was manufactured God knows where, and then you have a side effect, we have problems. And as we've seen, a lot of generic drugs made outside the United States have recently been recalled, and they found something called nitrosamines in them, in some of the blood pressure medicines, some of the stomach acid blocking medicines, and those are carcinogenic. So sometimes, you think you're saving money, but, I tell people, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes it's better to know that it's made in the USA or the UK, Canada, to know where there are people there's oversight of these manufacturing procedures and processes. And we've learned during COVID that our supply chain is national security, and where we get our medicines, where they're made. And it's so important that we continue as Americans, as a country, to keep close eye on where our medicines are made and where they're coming from. And that's the problem now we're having with the opioid crisis and the drug crisis, where people can't control the dose or where it's coming from. And we've had 103 opioid deaths just last year in the United States.
And what about all these gummies and other products that now have small amounts of THC or marijuana derivatives in them? Are they safe? And do they do anything?
They definitely do something. I mean, it depends on the combination, on the proportions of the CBD to the THC. The THC is the hallucinogenic aspect of it. The CBD has more of the medical therapeutics that help people. Once again, it's the same thing. It's basically knowing who is making the product, where it's being sourced. That's very important. But there are uses for it.
The origin and the verification of the dosage is critical. And that's one of the things. That's how you can get in trouble. And also, if you're a 100-pound woman versus a 250-pound man, and you take that same gummy that might have a certain dosage, it might have a dramatic effect on the 100-pound woman. The same thing with other medicines. For example, an aspirin is 325 milligrams. The antiplatelet and blood thinning effect it'll have on a 100-pound woman versus a 220-pound man is very different. So that's one of the problems in that whole industry, what we call the nutraceutical industry, because you can now make some of these things in your garage and just put a label on it. So when you look at things like, for example, I know with Dr. Magdalena, we were looking at some vitamins that she had recommended. They're always USA made, and they have on a GMP certified, which is good manufacturing practices. And when you start looking for these things, you start getting educated on what's important and making sure that they were made in a factory under the proper, chemical and chemistry protocols in a pharmaceutical grade laboratory, not in someone's garage.
And I guess for certain people, it's very hard to find out where these products come from. I myself, I'm not interested in any of them. I tend to be a naturalist, but I'm very interested in this medicine that you speak about and any type of anti-aging that's safe. Now, getting back to, you started to talk about hormone replacement. And for many people, they say, sure, I'd love to take hormones, but I've heard that hormones can cause cancer. Is this true, or is this a fallacy?
So that is associated with the synthetic hormones that have been used previously. When we speak of bioidentical hormone therapy, those are hormones that are formulated by compounding pharmacists that are, FDA regulated pharmacies, very clean, and they create hormones that mimic our physiology. So with the bioidentical hormones, you're actually getting cardiovascular protection. It's good for your bones, for preventing osteoporosis, osteopenia, good for brain function. It's very beneficial. And so the correlation, the association with the cancer is really with the old synthetics that a lot of the conventional gynecologists would give, or in the pill form, things like that.
And they don't do the same thing in the body, or I guess not. They do different things in the body, is what you're saying.
They're anatomically, they're different chemicals, so they're different. They're just different.
On the molecular level, the structure is different, and the way they interact with the receptors in the body is different. And that's what the difference is. Like certain estrogens or certain forms of estrogens may react in the body differently than what Dr. Magdalena was referring to as bioidentical, which is basically as close as possible to nature. Just like, for example, with thyroid replacement, there are bioidentical, more natural thyroid replacement therapies versus synthetic ones made in a laboratory.
All very interesting. Now, Dr. Michalos and Dr. Magdalena, this show is about philanthropy. And I would say that as people get older and they become successful, they have more time on their hands. And now, because of the good work that you do and many other physicians do in this type of anti-aging medicine, people live a stronger and healthier life. Don't you think that would make them want to be more philanthropic and more involved in the philanthropic process? I personally think so, because I know as a human being and as someone involved in philanthropy, as a philanthropist, I know that when I give my time, when I give my knowledge and my available resources, I feel good. And as the saying goes, when you give, you get. And I'm guessing living a longer, healthier life makes someone want to be kinder and more giving. Is this true?
I think it's absolutely true. And Dr. Magdalena, who is on our physician advisory board, what we try to do is identify things in the community. For example, we just put in all the police cars in the village of Southampton trauma kits. So you want to live longer, but also if you get into a car accident, you want it to be safe. So I tell people, support philanthropy, support your local healthcare, because the life you save may be your own.
Very nice. And Dr. Michalos, you've been so involved in philanthropy in the community of Southampton and then beyond. And I just want to thank you, because I know you were very involved in helping many institutions during the COVID-19 pandemic, and you're now involved with government officials and providing them with equipment and many other groups. And I thank you for your philanthropy. And Dr. Magdalena, we haven't had enough time to quiz you about your philanthropy, but I'm guessing you're also very involved in philanthropy. And if you want to talk about it in 30 seconds or less, I'd love to hear about it.
Well, I'll speak for her. She basically has been there throughout the COVID. She was there. She was doing a lot of testing when other people weren't offering it. There were some frail, sick people. She did home visits and exposed herself during the peak of the philanthropy without vaccines, without medications. So she's been there with us throughout the process on the physician advisory board, and also as a frontline physician treating patients with COVID. So we're very grateful for her service and her community advocacy throughout this whole ordeal of COVID.
And I want to thank both of you for your work in medicine and then in philanthropy. I love all the anti-aging work that you're doing. I think it's very important to all our viewers and just about everyone in this world. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Dr. Peter Michalos. He is an associate clinical professor of medicine at the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Columbia University, and Dr. Magdalena, who is an MD who works in Southampton and the surrounding areas of New York. Thank you very much. I'm Jean Shaffer, your host. I'll see you next week.